Hi guys, today we're going to work on how to estimate sums and looking at how you can use compatible numbers and rounding to help you estimate. Before we begin, stop. Do you have your guided notes, a pencil, your highlighter? If you need to grab any materials, pause the video now. And remember, when I'm going over things, if you don't understand something, write a question mark next to it in your notes. This way we can go over it in class tomorrow. We're going to start by introducing our vocabulary words. Our first word is sum, and sum means the answer to an addition equation. Equation is just a fancy math word that means a problem or a number sentence. Our next word is estimate, and an estimate is a number close to an exact amount, and it'll tell you about how many or about how much. And when we estimate, we normally round. And when you round, you are replacing a number with another number that tells about how many or about how much. Rounding uses place value, so you might round to the nearest 10, the nearest 100, the nearest 1,000. You can also use compatible numbers when you estimate. And compatible numbers are numbers that are easy to compute mentally and are close to the real numbers. Compatible numbers are close to the original and they make it easy for you to use mental math. That's what it means when we say compute mentally. You're able to do that math in your head. So a lot of times compatible numbers will end in zeros or fives. They might be sums of 10, so that's two numbers that can make 10 when you add them together, or sums of 100. And when you see sums of 100, a lot of times you'll see 25s, 50, 75, and 100, because when we're counting by 25s, it's like counting with quarters, and most people are able to count quarters pretty easily, so having 25, 50, 75 makes it a little bit easier for them to do the math in their head. So let's look at an example using compatible numbers. We have 432 plus 489. And if I'm going to use compatible numbers, remember I'm trying to just find some numbers that are close that I can add easily in my head. So when I look at 432, that looks pretty close to 425. And I like 425 because it has that 25 in it, which makes me think of a quarter. And 489 is close to 475. Again, I'm going with 25s because it makes me think of quarters. And when I go to add this, I look at the 25 and the 75. 25 is like 1/4, 75 is like 3/4, and if I have 4 quarters, I know that that's $1. So 25 plus 75 equals 100 because $1 is equal to 100 cents. Now I don't write the 100 in the ones place or the tens place. I have to make sure I line up my place values. So I put my 100 in the hundreds column. And then I can add 1 plus 4 and I get 9 hundreds. So 432 plus 489 is about 900. We're going to try rounding now to estimate, and if you need a reminder on how to round, go back and watch the rounding review or listen to the rounding song to go back over the steps. First, we're going to round to the nearest 100. So again, I'm working with 432 plus 489. So when I look at my first number, 432, I have a 4 in the hundreds place, and its neighbor is a 3. And I know that's 4 less, let it rest, so 432 is going to stay as 400. Then I look at 489. It has a 4 in the hundreds place and an 8 in the tens place. So the 8 tells me it's 5 or more, so we let it soar. So 489 is going to round up to 500. And then I can add this in my head, 400 plus 500, and again I get 900. So once again, 432 plus 489 is about 900. When rounding, I can also round to the nearest 10. And when I round to a smaller place value, I'm going to get an answer that's a little bit closer to the actual sum. So when I look at 432, I have a 3 in the tens place, and the neighbor is a 2. So that 2, it's 4 or less, so we let it rest. So 432 is going to stay as 430. For 489, I have an 8 in the tens place, and its neighbor is a 9. So that 9 is 5 or more, so we let it soar, so 489 will round up to 490. And then when I'm adding this together, I start with my ones place. 0 plus 0 is 0. 3 tens plus 9 tens is 12 tens, so I put a 2 in the tens place, and I carry 1 to my hundreds place. And then 100 plus 400 is 9 hundreds. So 432 plus 489 is about 920. And if we look at rounding to the nearest 10 on the left and rounding to the nearest 100 on the right, even though our numbers were a little bit different when we rounded, our sum, our answer at the end, is still really close. 900 and 920 are still good estimates. They're close together, so we know he still did a good job. Let's look at a few more examples. Let's start with 27 plus 78. What would we get if we rounded each number to the nearest 10? If I want to round 27 to the nearest 10, the neighbor is a 7, so 5 or more let it soar, so 27 would round up to 30. And then I look at 78, the neighbor is an 8, so again, 5 or more let it soar, and it's going to round up to 80. And then I have 30 plus 80. And I like to start with my bigger number first, so I think 80, and then 30, so that's 3 tens, so 80, 90, 100, 110, so my sum is 110. Looking at my next problem, 278 plus 364. Let's try this time to round to the nearest 100. So I look at 278, the neighbor of my hundreds place is a 7, so that's 5 or more, let it soar, so 278 should round up to 300. Then I look at 364. I look at the neighbor of the hundreds place, which is a 6, so again, that's going to round up, this time to 400. And 300 plus 400 makes 700. Now let's try a word problem. Green Lawn Service ordered 186 bags of topsoil and 462 bags of fertilizer. Estimate to the nearest 100 how many bags Green Lawn Service ordered. So we want to look for important words and important numbers. And the first important word I see is estimate. And estimate lets me know that I'm going to round. And the next important words I see are nearest 100. So that's telling me what place I want to round to. Now I'm going to look and see if I notice any important numbers. And I see 186 and 462. So these are the numbers I'm going to use in my problem. And we want to round these numbers to the nearest 100. So 186 rounded to the nearest 100. I look at my hundreds place, there's a 1, and the neighbor is an 8. So that lets me know it's going to round up to 200. For 462, I look at the neighbor of the hundreds place, and it's a 6. So once again, 5 or more let it soar. It'll round up to 500. And then I add 200 plus 500, and I get 700. So they ordered about 700 bags. Now you try. Answer the 3 questions at the end of your notes. Remember our key words. If a question asks you to estimate or tell about how many or about how much, you should round.